Petkovic. Na frente o Pet pro Adriano, que bola, Adriano por cima, que golaço!
After the roar of the stadiums is faded, and the bright lights which once followed him have dimmed, the story of Adriano Leche Ribeiro's life is one of the most compelling in world football. Not just because of what took place on the pitch, but because of what unfolded in the margins of fame, where greatness meets struggle, and where a global icon ultimately became, perhaps in many ways, a very human figure. To understand Adriano, then, is to simultaneously understand two worlds. One where the gleaming stadiums of Europe's elite leagues were played out, and the other where the tightly packed streets and alleys of the favelas of Brazil are played out. Spaces that are as culturally rich as they are socio-economically challenging. Many Brazilian footballers have come from such settings, but few have had the combination of physical power, technical skill, and raw physical emotion that Adriano did. His life story is a tapestry, vibrant, jarring, beautiful, and ultimately unsolved. He came of age when most boys are still working out life after school. By 18, he had not only made his debut for Flamengo, one of Brazil's most beloved clubs, but had also put himself well on the radar of Europe's most competitive leagues. That promise early on wasn't brought about by simply the physical gifts he was blessed with. His movement, pace, technique, and eye for goal set him apart even from Brazil's conveyor belt of legendary attacking talent. His first professional goals were not soft or cautious. They were statements, shots that thudded in nets with authority, angles that defenders could hardly dispute. The first few seasons were not without ups and downs, but there was always a feeling among those who watched him that here was a talent unlike most others. His ball control, combination of brute strength and subtle touch, and ability to finish from seemingly impossible situations set him apart. European clubs took notice of this early, and Inter Milan acquired him in 2001. His first time in Italy was a time of acclimatization. Italy's tactical savvy and determination to defend is a test by fire for any young forward. But as soon as he was loaned out, first with Fiorentina and then Parma, he flourished. At Parma, he exploded. More than 23 goals in 37 games in the Italian First Division, Serie A. A torrid scoring rate that sent ripples through the sport. Scouts, pundits, and fans from the opposing team alike began to refer to him with a mix of both reverence and fear. That period from 2002 to 2004 was when Adriano transcended the rubric of promising prospect and really went to the realm of the footballing global elite. Returning to Inter under Roberto Mancini, he didn't just pick up where he left off. He took his game to a new level. His goals weren't just numbers in a column. A lot of them were turning points in matches, vital strikes that galvanized his team. They were aimed to be remembered by the defenders long after the final whistle. Statistically, his performances were excellent. For Inter, over both spells, he scored 74 goals in 177 games, and this made him one of the most productive strikers in the Italian First Division, Serie A, during that period. Compared to his contemporaries with similar playing time, his ratio of goals per game was remarkable, considering the level of defense imposed by Italian football. To put things into context, strikers in Serie A tend to average closer to 0.3 to 0.4 goals per match. But Adriano's efficiency always tended to hover well above that average. Even in European competition, his attacking vectors, explosive pace, powerful finishing with his left foot, and clinical situational awareness made him a constant threat. His contribution to international affairs was also significant. Wearing the Brazilian shirt comes with a burden of expectation that few countries can match, and yet Adriano picked up that mantle with hunger and joy. He scored a total of 48 caps and 27 goals, a scoring rate that put him among the most effective forwards of all time to play for Brazil. At the 2004 Copa America, he was named best scoring player of the tournament with 7 goals and one of the greatest last-minute equalizers in the final that led to a Brazil trophy lift. At the 2005 Confederations Cup in soccer, he was not only Brazil's leader, but he was, again, the top marksman at the tournament, 5 goals, and was recognized as the best player overall. His name appeared in annual lists of the world's best players, and in both 2004 and 2005, Ballon d'Or voting, near the top of those lists, is a remarkable achievement in this world of global competition for those slots. Analysts and fans alike saw in him the potential to be not just one of the best of his generation, but one of the best of all time. And yet, even when Adriano's star was rising, there was private tragedy lurking in the background. The death of his father, the man to whom he had been constantly attached and on whom he had relied for emotional support, was a seismic shock that changed everything. Publicly, he carried on with scoring and performing, but privately, he was suffering from a grief that was deep and abiding. Teammates would later say that even at times of victory, there was an absence where joy once was. Some part of him was gone. No number of goals or accolades would ever bring him back. In the seasons after, rumors of his off-field life started to surface, not scandals of indiscipline alone, but hints of an inner life that was more troubled. Though he was still physically imposing, there were reports of inconsistency with the training, alternating levels of fitness and weight, and an increasing reliance on alcohol as a means of dealing with the emotional turmoil. These were not idle rumors. It turned out that later interviews and accounts from people close to him confirmed the fact that his battles with mental health and addiction were profound and took precedence, in his mind, over the game itself. Where once he had been characterized on the field by athletic precision and tactical intelligence, the wheels had sometimes fallen off when watching the later performances. Still in flashes, the old brilliance returned. Important goals here, moments of awe-inspiring skill there, but his game lacked consistency. By the late 2000s, his time at Inter had pretty much run its course. He returned to Brazil with Flamengo in 2009. It was almost like a homecoming, and scored 19 goals in 32 games, helping Flamengo win the Campeonato Brasileiro Serie A title. It was the club's first National League success in nearly 20 years, and central to its success was Adriano's contribution. Fans received him with open arms, and the streets of Rio boomed with chants and celebrations that honored his return. But even this triumphant chapter was unable to turn around the course of his career completely. Moves to AS Roma, Corinthians, a second spell with Flamengo, and Atlético Paranaense provided a chance to reinvent himself, but none of them allowed for the sustained success of his heyday. By the time of his move to Miami United in the United States in 2016, the narrative had changed again, from world-class striker to veteran journeyman. Off the pitch, Adriano's post-football life has been a life of contrasts. Some depictions center on his struggles, episodes where he has struggled with alcohol, public appearances that showed personal decline, and open admissions of struggling with depression. In a few public moments, he seemed not to be the person who used to command stadiums and glittering endorsements. But there's another part of his post-career reality that is just as much human, and so profoundly resonant. Adriano chose, by many counts, to anchor himself in the community that defined his early years. He returned to neighborhoods in Rio de Janeiro, places of close social ties and rich culture that characterize urban Brazilian life. There, he found joy in simple things: family gatherings, long conversations with old friends, afternoons away from media glare, and mornings characterized by routine and not press obligations. That simplicity, to some observers, was not a retreat, but some sort of reclamation, an attempt to redefine identity outside of fame and expectation. It's a journey which many won't know, as they only remember him as the explosive force in Inter's attack, or the electrifying number 9 for Brazil. In choosing a less noisy life, one detached from a never-ending loop of glories and pressures, Adriano was living the paradox of a man of exceptional talent, looking for meaning in life apart from applause. His personal relations, too, are complicated by this. While a short and sometimes bumpy, including a marriage in 2022 that lasted only 24 days, they also show the rawness of a life lived under a huge amount of emotional and psychological pressure. In candid statements, he has admitted suffering from depression and using alcohol to numb pain. Such admissions, while sobering, also open a window into the lived experience of someone who ascended to global heights, only to find that sporting success does not inoculate one from internal battles. Within the broader cultural memory of football, a number of people, including myself, commonly cite Adriano among football's great what-ifs. Analysts, commentators, and fans routinely debate the path his career might have taken had different choices been made. Had the emotional wounds been addressed earlier, or had his support system been more robust in terms of mental health care? These debates are not about goals and trophies at all, but how sport and society can contribute to the human beings who stand behind the athletic performance. In looking at his style of play, Adriano was unique in the way that he married physicality with fluid finesse. He wasn't just a strong striker that outran defenders, he was a player who could hold up the ball with strength, combine with his teammates with smart passing, and create chances from seemingly lost causes. His left foot was feared throughout the leagues. Long-range shots, acute angled shots, and sudden flash pace made him unpredictable and deadly. Tactically, he was a master of systems that gave him freedom to move around and exploit space behind defenses and use his physical gifts in transition moments. While some old-fashioned number 9s depend more on their game on positioning within the box, in Adriano's case, the game was dynamic. He could drop deeper to link play or stretch defenses with penetrating runs behind the last line. Coaches usually developed attack schemes that revolved around his ability to immediately alter the momentum of games. His legacy has also gone far beyond statistics. Younger Brazilian strikers and athletes throughout South America have named him as an inspiration, not only for his goals, but for the sheer force of will he showed in his early days. In the case of Brazil, where football carries a lot of national identity and collective feelings, what happens to Adriano's story is both the glory and the vulnerability of national sporting dreams. In the years since his retirement, Adriano has been the subject of documentaries, essays, and retrospectives, and all of them not just because of his talent, but because his story represents the complicated human dimensions behind elite athletes. He embodies brilliance and fragility equally, to remind the world that behind every sporting icon is a person, with fears, losses, joys, struggles, and a search for meaning that no trophy alone can satisfy. Today, as he walks familiar streets in Rio, spends afternoons with family, listens to music that triggers memories, or enjoys quiet moments away from public scrutiny, Adriano's life has entered a new chapter. One shaped not by the roar of stadiums, but by the stillness of personal reflection. Perhaps in that stillness is the truest version of the man who once carried the hopes of millions. His story, athletic, visceral, tragic, and ultimately human, endures not just as a story about goals and games, but as a testament to the great truth that greatness and vulnerability often walk hand in hand. Adriano might no longer race after defenders across manicured pitches, but his journey carries on to provide an insight into the core of what it means to be both a man of legend and a flawed, breathing human being.